Hey guys, Philosopher here, and today I have the best war defense teams for the month of September 2021. I waited some time this month to get these teams out there because it was really not clear to me how new warriors were going to impact the meta. I've now had a number of wars involving new warriors, both on offense and on defense, and I am going to kind of go through where to use some of these characters now. But one thing I'll just say as a caveat, there are war defense changes coming very soon, right? That are going to add more slots, that are going to add more energy up front, and so on. That's going to have an impact, particularly the additional slots, right? Because there are some teams that I will tell you I have not built up, right? I haven't built up my Fantastic Four very much for compared to the rest of my team. I haven't built up my AIM, teams like that. I mean, if you go to the bottom of my roster, I joked that my roster skipped leg day. I got all these characters at the bottom that haven't been built up, and so for me, I am gonna have to make decisions, and I think a lot of players are. I've seen some debate about this already in the comments. Do you want to put junk teams in a couple of the slots and just accept your losses? Or do you want to break up some of the hybrid teams that have been created to have more strong synergy teams? I think it's an open question, and I think there's arguments that could be made both ways. For instance, before we had the additional teams that we have now, we were running pretty much synergy teams. That's what people were doing. But now with the new OP characters, the older teams don't really work well unless they're synergized. So definitely some debate to be had there. So this is just a list based on where we're at now. And based on where we're at now, there is a clear top-tier team that rules the meta, and it is Heroes for Hire. This is by far the most effective war defense team by a country mile. That is going to change with the Weapon X team, with Omega Red and so forth. But not everyone's going to have that character, right? That's the sort of character that it's hard to get on the first run, that a lot of players aren't going to be able to get. So really, how much this meta changes depends a lot on where you're at in the game, what sort of levels of competition you're facing. My opponents have basically unlocked everything, and they're going to all have Omega Red. So I expect this team to go down. For right now, however, this team absolutely rules the meta, and in many ways, how you do in a war is going to depend on how you handle this team. If you're going to manage your teams correctly, you're going to need to save your Infinity Watch to use against Heroes for Hire. You can see I've changed my ISO a bit. There's more on that soon. I'm going to talk about that in an upcoming video with a new updated infographic that's already in the works. But the long and short of it is this team is so good that if somebody in your alliance makes a mistake and uses Infinity Watch against something else, well, you're in trouble because it's going to take a lot of attacks to get this thing down. All right, and it scales very, very well with gear. So the bigger yours is, right? Mine is pretty large. I think it's 823K. If you I think with war buffs it's like 1 million. If you are facing a very large Heroes for Hire, it can take you many different attacks to take down without Infinity Watch. In our latest war, I think on the initial attack, the opponent only took down Shang-Chi. He wasn't able to take down the other 4 characters, and as a result, I think it took 3 other attacks to clean up the other 4, to give you a sense of things, without them using a second Infinity Watch. So when we look at my tier list, and this is included below, Heroes for Hire is on its own tier. And really, I could have had this as tier 1 and then went right to tier 3. There's such a drop between Heroes for Hire and Infinity Watch. So why, you might ask, why is Infinity Watch on such a lower tier? It's such an amazing team. Well, here's the thing with Infinity Watch. I've got a much bigger Infinity Watch. But this Infinity Watch team, as a practical matter, you can two-shot it. You can, do a double tap, right? In other words, you can bring in a team, get half these characters down, and then easily clean up the rest in a way that just doesn't happen with Heroes for Hire. Heroes for Hire regenerates all its ability energy, and they do healing and all this stuff to kind of come back, back to full strength. Doesn't happen here with this team. There isn't as many crazy revives. You could go all in on, let's say, Phyla-Vell and take her down with one attack and then do another attack. This team is also not that much stronger in terms of war than a team like Secret Avengers, if you include a couple other strong characters with it. If you have Secret Avengers, Kestrel, and a strong fifth character, you can potentially beat this team on a punch down or something like that. So a very good team, but definitely on a separate tier. I do have it above all the other defenses. And I think that Infinity Watch is also on its own level. If you're facing an opponent that just goes full out on defense, let's say they're taking the war off, and they put all Heroes for Hire and Infinity Watch on defense. We faced this one time. They literally were taking the war off. They just did that. It becomes a lot. It takes a lot of creativity because you have to use Infinity Watch to clear this, and then you have to come up with other options against Infinity Watch. So that's how I know definitively what works against large Infinity Watch. And in this, you can take down in a way you can't take down Heroes for Hire with other teams, at least for now, until Weapon X come and hard counters this team, and can of course beat Infinity Watch as well. All right, let's talk about the new Warriors. I've got them here as a tier 3 defense, is the third best defense, could move up to tier 2 at the top end, 4th and 5th. So, I think, for right now, they're probably a little better on defense, but it really depends on how built up your roster is. In other words, at the level of competition I'm at, everyone's got everything built. But that's not how it is for most players. I hear from players all the time that tell me that in their level of war, Black Order is very important, or X-Men, or whatever, because that's just what people have built up so high. And obviously, if your team is twice as big, twice as high or power than another team, it's going to have a different impact. But new Warriors, if you have everything built up, can really be a bait in the butt for the enemy, okay? And, part of the reason why is because they have a heck of a lot of debuffs that they get out of there very quickly. And basically you're trying to take down a character, let's say like Cloak, very quickly, but he has dodges, kind of like how Spider-Man and other characters do. Sure, you've all been frustrated in Raid, so he can be a challenge to take down. Deathpool, of course, is, she removes debuffs, and she can even shoot them back at you. She's giving death proofs to the team as they get low on health. There's healing from Dagger. She's got her own debuffs to come out. So a lot of things going on with this team, but you may ask me, I get a lot of players ask me, what's the best 4th and 5th? And it really depends on what you're doing and what your whole strategy is. In other words, when I set for my alliance, when we're facing a big war, like right now we're fighting a war against Legion, when I'm trying to figure out where are we going to place our teams, are we going to put new Warriors on defense or offense, what our 4th and 5th are, it depends on what other characters we have available when I'm making decisions about what other teams to run. In other words, I'm running these 3 characters with a couple just spares on the side that aren't my best characters. But if you're going to run this, let's say you're putting this in defense with, Kestrel and Surfer, or Emma and Surfer, you're going to have a much better result. That's going to bump this up into, let's say, tier 2. If you're running them with, I don't know, whatever, a couple of random characters, Ghost Rider and Drax, well, they're not going to do as well. But even then, these 3 characters are so strong on their own that they're going to draw a good counter. So even with a couple junky characters, the enemy's gonna have to bring in something like Shadowland to beat them. And Shadowland does pretty well because it flips the debuffs. But that's literally what it's gonna take. And if your opponent doesn't have a really built up Shadowland and you have a built up new Warriors, then they're in trouble. And they're also in trouble if they need Shadowland to beat something else. So, to me, this is a very good counter, or very good defense, because it requires very specific counters, and if the enemy doesn't have them available, they're in trouble. Now, if we go further down tier 3, we start getting into Doom defenses. Now, I've really tried to, not have too many tiers, because people are complaining that there are so many tiers, it was hard to keep them all straight. But I put the Doom defenses here because I really feel like they're very strong, and ultimately they demand a very specific counter. I mean, the reality is with Doom, if you just place them with a bunch of random characters, or you place them with Marauders, the symbiotes or X-Men are going to beat them, because all those Doom bots come out and their summons, they're going to feed turn meter to the enemy. So people usually put Uncanny there because Colossus is very hard for the symbiotes or X-Men to deal with. Same thing with Brotherhood. He just blinds everyone. The symbiotes never get started. That's basically the teams that are used that I see with Doctor Doom. And they basically require you to use something like X Factor as a counter. There are other options. You can use Kestrel with like a certain team, but there's limited options that you can use. And to me, any defense that's so strong that it has has very limited counters and they can be tricky. Can be a tricky fight. You can have losses if you don't play it very carefully. To me, that makes us a very good defense at any level. At the highest levels in the game, when you have everything unlocked and everything in orange gear, everything built up, these defenses up here are still ones that people are concerned about. Okay, these defenses and these tiers are ones that it's like, okay, we have to be careful about what we use. And whether the enemy places one type of this defense or another is going to impact how the war goes and which teams you use to counter what. There's a lot of grand strategy involved that I think all of you will get to experience when we have this grand tournament that comes to the game. I'm very excited about that and preparing you guys for that, because that's the part of this game that I find the most fun, is making decisions about what to put on offense and defense and, figuring out the right counters to use and where to use our teams. That's a lot of fun, but you don't get to do it if you're not, quarterbacking on the Alliance's efforts. All right, let's talk about this Uncanny team. I've been starting to see this. I'm going to give credit to Bad Dreams from Baby Yoda, as well as Yeti from Agents of Midgard, who really were the two people who really alerted me to this team. And the reason that team works so well is if you go and look, Beast is both astonishing and uncanny, because he, of course, was originally on that Uncanny team. So that's actually really nice. So Beast has synergy with Phoenix and Colossus, and he has synergy with Jubilee and Bishop. And let's face it, Kitty and Iceman aren't that important. And once you have everything built up, Uncanny is just like a defense team. And X-Men really aren't that important. And I know some of you are like, what? I'm going to get all these angry comments and DMs or whatever, posts on my Discord, like, well, X-Men is the number one team at our level of war. And I'm not saying that they're not. If you have a 700K X-Men and the other teams are 400K, well, obviously they're going to do really well. But if you have everything at 700K, the X-Men aren't very important. And so creating this hybrid team actually makes them very challenging to defeat. They are very beatable. There are ways to get around this team, but it is certainly better than straight X-Men, and it's better than straight Uncanny. And so for right now, this is a hybrid that's out there. I suspect that this hybrid won't be worth running once there are more defense slots, but I can't be sure. What I try to do, guys, is wait and get a sense of where the meta is at the high level based on what's unlocked. And then I sort of make these videos. I don't try to guess. These aren't my guesstimates. These are literally what I am seeing top alliances run. Okay? Black Order is here. Black Order is run on defense a lot more nowadays. It's a choice. It's a swing team. For example, in our current war that we have against Legion, I have our alliance running Black Order on defense. They're running Black Order on offense. There's not right or wrong to it. It gives them certain options, gives us certain options to have it on defense. It requires certain counters for the enemy. The bottom line is this is not an essential team anymore. It's not a team that beats everything anymore. It counters certain teams very well, like Uncanny, but a lot of the newer meta, it doesn't counter and just gets rolled by them. Most people have this team very large. At your level of war, this team may be more important because you've invested more into them. As you can tell, I've kind of stalled my investment in this team because they're just not as important anymore. I'm sure eventually I'll put Blue ISO on them or raise up their levels when the time comes. I've really only done that at this point just for Thanos and Maw because I was using them in raids for a short period of time. All right, and then the last team that is here is this Inhumans Surfer Coulson team, and this is a team that you still see occasionally, can be very strong. This is taking what I'll call the good Inhumans. So if you look here, it's going to be easy for you to see which those are. Black Bolt, Yo-Yo, and Crystal. I got the others very low. They're very good. Crystal's good if you have this Second Wind, T4, she really does a lot of, she has like a cleanse and heal that works whenever the Black Bolt or Yo-Yo go below 50% the first time. She cleanses them, kind of an out-of-turn cleanse, just like there's out-of-turn damage, it's an out-of-turn healing and cleanse. And Black Bolt and Yo-Yo are strong, Surfer strong, but the reality of the situation is that you generally need to have, let's say, Black Bolt and Surfer around to clean up Heroes for Hire, at least if your opponents have huge Heroes for Hire. So this team is limited in its use right now. It's the sort of team that once Heroes for Hire has a hard counter and Weapon X, we might see more of. All right, now we get into, I'll call the dregs of defenses. So there's the other Doom defenses. These are the ones that usually lose to Symbiotes or Axemen if your opponent knows what they're doing. Kestrel Shield. This is a pretty bad use of Kestrel Shield. I guess you know what I'm going to put? I'll actually put at this level. We'll put Secret Avengers. Bad use of the team. Use on offense. I put this stuff on here basically because I'll get 100 million questions about these teams otherwise. In other words, if I don't just throw this on there, even though it's bad, people ask me, why do you even put it on there then? Well, because I'll get a lot of questions. What about Secret Avengers? Secret Avengers, you can beat with like Axemen or something. They have all these summons, between Hill and Fury or whatever. Really silly team to be running on defense when it's so much better on offense. The other Doom defense, the same thing. If you're just throwing Doom with random characters or Marauders or something, he's just going to get beaten by Symbiotes or Axemen. Kestrel Shield, similar sort of thing. You can even beat this with like Hydra usually. Astonishing X-Men, as just a regular team. I guess, tell you what, I'm going to, on the fly here, we'll put them above the other Doom defenses. Just, I feel like this team is so easy to defeat if you know what you're doing. Same with Kestrel Shield. And then these are the bread and butter teams that still fill out some slots. At your level more, you very well may see more of these teams than you do of these ones up here. What we've been trying to do is, as we've gotten more and more characters, and we're still with 8 slots for now, we've been trying to get these teams to a minimal level. So it's Mercenaries with Korath and Ultimates. I did consider moving them up because, frankly, Mercs with Korath and Ultimus can be very strong. We're seeing a lot of this because Ultimus, if he's 7 red stars, G15 can just erase the red Guardian. But to me, it's, you really need to have a huge Ultimus, and I suspect that for most people you don't. So I would put it higher if you have like a humongous Ultimus, and I see a lot of those in my level where I'm basically, in our current war, it's like every opponent's got a 6 or 7 red star Ultimus that's geared up, but like most of you aren't seeing that a lot. So this team can scale very well with gear. This team with Black Widow, you don't really see much at all. It's only if you don't have Skeleton built up. And this team can be very strong. Black Widow is important because she not only has a cleanse, which is huge for this team, but also adds speed up, which helps that the team quite a bit because they're otherwise slow. Mercs with Killmonger and Shuri are kind of a step below Korath Ultimus. They just lose every time to Skeleton. Marauders with Emma Frost, because you're seeing her elsewhere, particularly to counter Heroes for Hire. If you keep Emma Frost on the team, they're still at this level. They require a reasonable counter. It can be hard to beat this team with something like X-Force unless they're really huge. So people are still using good teams at times to counter Marauders, but they've really fallen off a lot. Symbiotes, you can counter with a lot of different teams like X-Force or Shadowland or, even Brotherhood. Depends on the size of the symbiotes. You have to be very cognizant of the different sizes of the characters. Hydra Zemo, I think this team's better on offense, but people do throw it on defense, and you basically want to use Zemo to counter Zemo, ironically. Uncanny X-Men, if you just throw them there, they can be easily countered, but they still require some response. These teams are just not very good. These are sort of like the dredge teams that we occasionally see. Sinister Six lose every time to Axemen, and can lose even to symbiotes. Hella Natural. Wave 1 Avengers without Black Widow, you use X-Force on them or something. Fantastic Four plus She-Hulk, not very good. Loses to a Fantastic Four on offense even. Marauders without Emma Frost, not very good. And then this is just stuff that I just leave on here because, you may still see it at your level of war. Maybe they'll matter as you get 10 slots, but just fill in a slot there, in my opinion. All right, guys, this gives you a sense of what the meta looks like. This is what I'm seeing now. That's obviously going to change very soon, but it gives you a good snapshot of when you have everything built, what what you're using. If you don't see it at your level, that's just because people at your level maybe haven't built some of these teams as much. But the teams that are higher on this list tend to scale very well with gear. That's why I'm seeing them when people have 900K, million power teams. These are the ones that are doing very well right now before the new Alliance War changes. All right, guys, if you like this video, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel. If you have any comments, you can leave them below or just go to my Discord. That's linked below as well. You can also check out my Twitch stream. That is linked below too.